There's a reason you're cold every time you go outside. Oftentimes we just put on more and more clothes when it gets colder out, but it has less to do with that and more to do with how you put your layers on and what you do before you put your layers on. If you just keep adding on layers, you're just going to end up in a mobile, chubby mess, and nobody wants to end up like that when it's cold out. Layering comes down to three different things. You have your base layer, which should be made out of a polyester or a wool, like this. Heavy weight for colder weather and medium weight for medium weather, lightweight for lighter weather. Heavyweight in the winter is going to be what keeps you warm. This is the stuff that keeps that warmth close to your skin and then keeps the warmth from getting out too far, right? This traps heat. Most importantly though, this will wick the moisture away from your skin. So when you start working outside, you start moving around and you get sweaty, your base layer is going to be the only thing that keeps your skin from getting damp and then cold from your sweat. After your base layer, you're going to need what I call an insulation layer. This is going to be your down jackets or your down pants. What these do is these circulate heat and again store in more heat. So while your base layer is wicking away moisture and then kind of keeping that residual heat close to your body, this is going to trap that heat. So that's keeping it close to your body. This is trapping it. This is not allowing the heat to get out of your body. Because you got to keep in mind, you don't get hot from clothes. Your clothes can only keep you as hot as they can reflect your body heat. So when I have heat coming off of my chest, it just leaves if I'm not wearing anything. If I have a puffy coat on, right, then it's going to hit my puffy coat and reflect back onto me, or it's going to stay trapped in my puffy coat. Insulation layers, they're pretty simple. This can be as simple as a fleece jacket, or it can be a puffy. All this needs to do is be a very light and fluffy material that isn't close to your skin, but will trap the heat close to your body and close to your base layer. But keep in mind, all this does is trap heat, but it doesn't trap it very well. All this does is keep the heat closer to your body. Your heat will leave you if you just have one of these on. That's where the shell layer comes in. While your puffy and your base layer are keeping the heat close to you, your shell layer is keeping the elements off of your body. Right now I'm wearing this puffy jacket. If I got it zipped up and a cold gust of wind comes through, they're going all my heat because the wind's going to go right through this thing. But if I put on this jacket right here, then this is going to stop the wind. So right now, as of what I'm wearing, I'm going to keep the heat close to my body, and then I'm going to keep any outside elements from getting in and compromising that heat that I'm keeping close to my body. So that means this is going to stop the wind, this is going to stop snow, this is going to stop rain, whatever is going to be outside of what's going on underneath this is what's stopping it. The most important part of a shell layer is that it's tough, right? And that it stops the wind. If this is getting hit by sticks, if it's getting hit by branches, if it's getting hit by wind, this needs to stop it from compromising my other two layers. Just as important as your base layer is your gloves and your socks. Your socks also need to wick moisture. For cold weather, I only wear wool. Wool is the only way to go. It's the only thing that's going to be thick enough to keep you warm, and it's the only thing that'll wick moisture away from your feet. If you have sweaty feet and you take them out of your boots, they're just going to freeze and you'll get frostbite. Also, you have to be wearing boots in the wintertime to keep the snow off your feet. When you do that, you're going to want a thicker sock so that you're not rubbing and getting bruises and getting blisters on your feet. Another thing you have to keep in mind, your feet and your hands do not produce nearly the warmth that your mid-body and lower body can. So when your feet get cold, it's extremely hard to warm them back up. So you need something that will keep them at a steady temperature, which is why I prefer thick wool socks. Your hands and your feet, small blood vessels, easy to get cold, and they do not warm back up very quickly at all. So you need gloves that meet two criteria. Your gloves need to be warm, and they most importantly need to stop any wind or any cold from getting inside of the glove. Here is a prime example of good gloves. Why are they good gloves? Because they have a fleece lining inside of them. And additionally, they have I believe this is Gore-Tex on the outside. So these gloves are stopping the cold. Like if I pick up snow, the cold snow is not going to get through this glove. The wind is not going to get through this glove. Most importantly, and yes, most importantly, is a hat. I have a hat on right now. This one was made out of a raccoon. This one you can buy in stores. 80% of your heat is lost through your head for two main reasons. One, there's a lot of arteries moving through your neck and your head, right? That's where a lot of your heat is going. Your brain needs to stay warm to function, right? That is literally the definition of hypothermia, is that your brain gets too cold to function. Not your body gets too cold, your brain gets too cold to function. Didn't I say two main reasons? The second is your face is 9 times out of 10 the most exposed to the elements. I have longer hair, and that's for a reason. It keeps me warm. My hair goes down my neck and protects the back of my neck from getting cold. But if I go outside wearing a jacket, everything besides my hands and my face and neck is covered up. Now, that is a huge issue because this area, which generates, keep in mind, this area is going to be one of the hottest spots on your body, but is the most exposed to the elements. Anything will help, but ideally it is wool. Again, I'm going to keep saying it like a broken record. Wool is hands down some of the best stuff you can get, right? The sheep have it for a reason, because I like to stay warm. And the only way to stay warm is with a wool hat or a raccoon skin hat. Or, like maybe a skunk, possum. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff you can make into a hat. Earlier, I mentioned that it matters what you do before you put your clothes on. What does that mean? Let's get into it. Oh yeah, here we go. It's currently 7 degrees out right now, as you saw. Right now, without my jacket on, I'm cold. If I put my jacket on, it's really not going to make circumstances any better. Watch. I'm still cold. Why? Because your jacket doesn't generate heat. Your body is what generates heat. If you're cold and you put on a jacket, that's just going to keep you colder, because if you're already cold, like in your heart or whatever, and you're not putting off enough body heat and you put on a jacket, it's just going to keep that cold air close to you. That's why they say if you fall in the river or whatever, you have to strip all your clothes off, because your clothes are wet and cold. And if you keep those on you, it's just going to get you colder. This is because your body needs an external source of heat, or needs to have its internal source of heat, i.e. your body letting off body heat, to keep you warm. This is where a fire comes in handy, because a fire is an external source of heat that can warm up your clothes and warm up yourself so that you can keep warm. That's why if I were to go inside and put on socks right now, because I'm wearing sandals and my toes are currently numb, that it wouldn't help. It would keep my toes cold. But if I go inside for an hour, let my toes warm up, then put on nice woolly socks, my toes are going to stay warm for hours, assuming that I have a boot that can insulate my foot from the outside elements. So as you can see, this whole insulation and keeping warm thing is simple. It's about keeping your internal body away from the external elements that are going to make it cold, and then keeping the heat that your body produces close inside of your clothes. I'm going inside now because it's cold. Does the quality of your clothing matter? Yes and no. Here's why. If I put on a bunch of super cheap cotton and I go out and it's 7 degrees, am I going to stay warm? No. However, if I go outside wearing one layer of wool, am I going to stay warm? No. It all depends on the factors that I just talked about. Are you warm when you put your clothes on? Are you wearing your 3 essential layers? And are you or are you not wearing a hat? What can you do to get warm when you're cold? This is a pretty simple area that comes down to pretty much 2 solutions: fire and going inside. 9 times out of 10, those are going to be your 2 solutions. You can have a heater, or you can go inside, or you can start a fire, or you can go inside. Like, those are pretty much your 2 options. And inside classifies, like, to me, going inside means going inside a building, going inside your car, just things like that. Like, those are going to be obviously your main sources of getting warmer. The second source, and this is the most important for any outdoorsman out there, is going to be a fire. Starting a fire is going to be a lifesaver. If you are extremely cold and you are freezing and your body's not producing enough body heat to keep you warm, you will need an external source of heat, which for anybody that's outdoors, you're going to be able to start a fire, most likely. And you should start a fire because that's most likely going to be the easiest way to get hotter faster. Don't be shy to start fires. As long as there's not a burn ban and you keep your fire very controlled and watch over it, there's going to be no issue with starting a fire. Just make sure you put it out, make sure that you control your fire, and make sure that you know all the regulations before you starting a bunch of fires in the woods within minutes of each other, you know? Like, just start a fire there, throw this burning torch into the pile of dead pine trees, you know? I wouldn't recommend it, but you can do it. I wouldn't recommend it, and you shouldn't do it, sorry. If you are getting extremely cold and you just can't keep warm, there's no point in sticking out a trip. You're just gonna die. Like, I hate to say it, but you will die if you do that. Cold is not something you should be messing around with, especially if you don't have a way to get warm quick. Putting on a bunch of extra clothes might help, but if you're at the end of all your clothes that you can put on and you can't get a fire started, just go back to your car and warm up. Nobody's going to call you weak for doing that. They're going to call you smart because you didn't die. Like, the first rule of life is don't die, right? So just go back to your car and warm up. Don't bother trying to start a fire when you can't start a fire. That's the easiest thing to do. So in summary, here's what you need to know about staying warm and insulating yourself against the cold. You need your base layer, you need an insulation layer, you need your shell layer, you need a hat, you need gloves, and you need warm socks. If you have those 6 elements down, you will be staying warm. Additionally, you will need to have some form of heat before you put all these clothes on and during or after. Ideally, all 3 of those, meaning that could be you're inside when you put your clothes on, you're next to a fire when you put your clothes on, have a fire while you're out and about, or you are going to be starting a fire once you finish whatever activity you're doing outside, or you're going to go back inside, or you're going to take a break and you're going to go back to your car and warm up. You need to be able to have something you can always go back to warm up, not just have your clothes. So that's the conclusion. That is how you stay warm. That's the way I've done it for a long, long time, and I've stayed very warm. I'm not dead yet, and I've been out in like negative 20 degrees doing all kinds of stuff, going on all kinds of adventures. Just make sure you get that base layer, the insulation layer, the shell layer, the hat, the gloves, the whole 9 yards. Make sure you layer it correctly, and then make sure that you have something to keep you warm. And you are guaranteed to stay warm on your next adventure if you follow all of these according to the plan.